and the quirkier side of life. The Todd Starnes Commentary.
Just when you think Obamacare can't get worse, the sun rises. And with morning's first light comes word that fewer than 50,000 Americans signed up for Obamacare. That number, first reported by the Wall Street Journal, the White House had projected 500,000 Americans would have signed up by now. The New York Times reports President Obama said if he had just known about the problems at healthcare.gov, he could have delayed the website. Well, maybe if he'd spent more time in the Oval Office instead of the golf course, he might have known. Congratulations to Stan and Lisa Manning of Memphis, Tennessee, now the proud recipients of free lactation services courtesy of Obamacare. But Stan says, seeing how he and his wife are in their 50s, it's unlikely they'll be needing those new services. It's the thought that counts. I'm Todd Starnes.
Welcome back. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth right here. Thanks, Todd Starnes. We appreciate you. Right here, AFR Talk. Now, few things I want to cover before the first hour is out. What an honor it is to receive compliments for the interview last night with Karen Vaughn, who spoke about Veterans Affairs because she is the spokesperson for Concerned Veterans for America, but she is also a Gold Star mother and author of the book Betrayed. And I've got to tell you, when you all write in, and some of you have sons, family in the military, I am deeply touched, and I appreciate you all. Appreciate all the comments and all the thanks, but wow, very nice. So thank you very much for the compliments on that interview, and I will post that interview post-show so that some of you who are interested in maybe getting the book, you can. And you can do that without even actually listening to the interview. But it's a good interview. So I hope you do enjoy it. Right now, George Clinton? No, not George. Not P-Funk. George Clinton. George Clooney. See, when I think of, well, don't even get into it. George Clooney answering a question regarding the terrible tragedy that has been experienced in the Philippines through a typhoon. He's answering the questions. He's at an award ceremony. So they're walking in on the red carpet, and he says this. Roll it.
Well, it's just a stupid argument. I mean, whether or not this particular storm is anyone, if you have 99% of doctors who tell you are sick and 1% that says, you're fine, you probably want to hang out with check it up for the 99. You know what I mean? The idea that we ignore that we're in some way involved in climate change is ridiculous. You know, what's the worst thing that happens? You know, we clean up the earth a little bit, and I find this to be the most ridiculous argument ever.
So my question to you, speaking to this, is, yes, our hearts and prayer goes out to those impacted by the storm, a terrible storm. Absolutely. But, not really, but the topic is here. What would you say to George Clooney, who views climate skeptics as stupid and cites the fact that there is consensus? Now, he's speaking to not all scientists. It was actually a pool of 75 scientists. He examined the report that he was going. He'd also look at consensus. It's not really consensus. It's either right or wrong. And there have been, since every year we learn more about what was called global warming. They can't do that anymore because for the last 10 to 15 years it's been flat, or we've cooled the Earth's temperature. Now it's moved to climate change and man-made climate change through our activity, CO2, though the hockey stick graph that has been touted to say the correlation, or the causation rather, between rising CO2 levels, which are at 1994 levels today because of the economy, are causing the Earth's temperature to rise. Well, a number of ways that's been broken down. So I want to know what you would have to say to George Clooney. Your response, 1-888-589-8840, 1-888-589-8840, 1-888-589-8840. Because when you make that type of statement, I don't think you get a lot of feedback from people that may disagree with you or at least hold another opinion when it comes to global warming, man-made climate change, settled science. So tell me what you would say to George Clooney. Also, where does it rank, climate change? Are you man-made climate change through CO2, okay? Where does that rank on what you want the government to do, not only our government, but as a world community, what we want to do? When I say world community, I cringe too. So 1-888-589-8840. 1-888-589-8840. And just so that we have George Clooney again, I want to play it again, and then we're going to go right to the phones and take your phone calls. 1-888-589-8840 as Hannah posts them up. Here is George Clooney. We can do it again. Roll it.
Well, it's just a stupid argument. I mean, whether or not this particular storm is anyone, if you have 99% of doctors who tell you are sick and 1% that says, you're fine, you probably want to hang out with them, check it up for the 99. You know what I mean? The idea that we ignore that we're in some way involved in climate change is ridiculous. You know, what's the worst thing that happens? You know, we clean up the earth a little bit and I find this to be the most ridiculous argument ever.
Most ridiculous argument ever. So, Brian, what do you say to George Clooney from Arkansas, the great state, the natural state? Brian, how are you?
I'm doing good, sir. What I would tell him and Baldwin and all the rest of the kooks up there, that they're not living. They don't live in the real world. Anyway, it's kind of like our government taking the word of the not the NAACP, but the other group that calls AFR.
The Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah. So, I mean, Brian, you called them kooks. I mean, I don't think you're allowed to do that. They can call you racist. They can call me racist. They can call us stupid. And they can attempt to basically insult us with their form of entertainment, or at least try to tell us that we are on the wrong side of history because we know the difference between a man and a woman, and we recognize that and believe that the Scripture is the breath of God, the Word of God is true. That said, I don't know. You want to take back what you said about calling them kooks? Hey, Brian, thanks.
I think I'm gonna stick by my original statement.
Brian, where does global warming climate change rank with you on issues that you're concerned with, man-made global warming?
Well, since I never really think about it, I don't guess it really has a rating.
Okay. Hey, Brian, thank you. We appreciate your phone call. And I understand. People call me kooky all the time. It's okay. And I'm just making a point in just how there is an absolute double standard when it comes to name calling and how things go. And understand that George Clooney making this remark, I want to hear more from you all regarding this. 1-888-589-8840. 1-888-589-8840. We go now to Jeremiah in Texas. Jeremiah, thank you for your patience. And tell me, what would you say to George Clooney?
Hey, what's up, Crane? Well, I would like to just tell Mr. Clooney that I don't think, as scientists, I don't think we've been gathering data long enough to make any kind of definitive or conclusive statement about it. And it's just funny how, they're just fuzzy with their math, or they'll hold science up and try to tout it in front of us who, believe in look at the world and look at science through a biblical base, and, they just don't want to, even adhere to the basics and names of science of, making observations and, doing due diligence on it. I don't know. What do you think, Crane?
Well, I'll say this. We don't know. Honestly, I remember asking Newt Gingrich about this, and I found his answer pretty fascinating, because and I'm just giving a cliff-noted version, mind you, but he said we really don't know, conclusively what has happened. We know that we've had periods of warming and cooling, and obviously that has existed over time, and we do know what the evidence has been brought forth. And now Crane Durham speaking, who is Mr. Potter was my science teacher, and he's saying, Crane, you may never comment on science unless you have the information and it's not in a way that you're analyzing and trying to portray like you are a scientist and that you know what you're speaking of. No, I will only say the information that we have is it's not settled, and also the information we have regarding the journalistic evidence that has been put forth has been called into question and actually has been scandalous on withholding information that disagreed with the, quote, consensus that it was settled. So those are the things that certainly undermine it for me. We were told that we were going to have an ice age in the 1970s, and then the same people told us we had global warming. So big problems there. Jeremiah, tell me, where does it rank on your scale, 1 to 10, of importance for you?
It's in the negative category there, Crane. There's so much more way more important things we need to spend our time, resources, and energy on than some hocus pocus inconclusive data or something like that.
Gotcha. Hey, appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Absolutely, Crane. Take care.
All right. 1-888-589-8840. Now we have all guys calling in. That's great. Ladies, you are welcome to call in too to get a woman's perspective on this as well. You can say, well, you can say whatever you want. Just always want that to be known. Brad, Texas, the great state of Texas. Your thoughts, Brad?
What I would say that George Clooney is to a great lie. I think what scientists have done with global warming and the whole global warming thing is the same thing they've done with evolution. They've repeated the same lie over and over again, and eventually everyone believes it. With evolution, the scientists will sit there and say, well, there's no adequate study that is accepted by the scientific community. Well, how do you get a study accepted? You get it in a peer-reviewed journal. How do you get it in a peer-reviewed journal? The same scientists that are saying that there's no evidence are rejecting every single argument against evolution, and they're doing the same thing with climate change. And it's ridiculous how unscientific their processes are. My botany professor in college, and was Dr. Cannon, he that there were several of us in the class that were opposed to the idea of climate change, and we posed the question to him to show us a scientific study that proved it. And his argument, and it's one I've heard from other people too, is that if we were to do an experiment, then by the time that we could gather enough data, then it will be too late. And to me, that's just trash.
It's interesting also in academia where ideas are supposed to be encouraged in the sense of dissenting opinions, and especially in the like of science and going out and trying to prove something. Consensus exists in Washington oftentimes, and to the very much to our chagrin when it comes to what the end result is as conservatives, I would say. But with that said, the idea that somehow consensus science, it doesn't make sense. No, you either you prove it or you do not. You have a hypothesis and you prove it or you do not. But in academia, what I've noticed, and you talk about the intensity of when you call into question the green movement, it is unbelievable the way kids are being indoctrinated with this junk science, or science that at least should be called into question and a dissenting point of view should be offered, because it becomes a religion for so many in academia. And I've seen it firsthand. It disgusts me. It actually really chips my beef, and now I'm getting that kind of like angry voice. So I don't mean to do that to you, Brad. I just appreciate you calling in and appreciate you being part of the show. Thanks, man. Take care. All right, let's go to Jim in Louisiana, and then we'll go back to Texas. Jim, what would you say to George Clooney?
Yes, I would say that my comment is a bit sarcastic, but I would have to view the source. I've always considered actors mostly professional fakes, And I just don't understand why anybody would take advice from a professional fake whose entire world is a fantasy. So I just don't take anything he says as practical.
Okay, and on a scale of 1 to 10, climate change, where does it rank with you?
It's an interesting scientific discussion topic, but basically I'm a scientist, and I just don't see that it has any, you might say, scientific fact to support it. I just think it has a lot of money chasing it, and that's what makes it real.
Yeah, Jim, I would love to have you and George Clooney have a conversation, and I'm going to invite George Clooney right now to the broadcast. You can call in the next half hour or tomorrow, set it up. We'll get Jim back on. You all can have a conversation about this. It would be wonderful. Jim, I appreciate your point of view. I would just say with actors, I don't think, professional fakes, I know where you're going with that, but I think he's quite talented in the sense of being able to play other characters and roles, and at times I've liked some of those characters. I think they live in a world that is so disconnected from us that they make these statements thinking, oh, well, yeah, of course I'm going to make this statement because I'm right. Nobody really tells me I'm wrong. You got to have somebody really bust your chops now and again. And I mean that figuratively, of course. Hey, thanks, man. Great to be with you. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean it figuratively. Come on, take it easy. But you got to have somebody say, no, I disagree with you. And one of the things that people can't figure out about talk radio is its popularity is there are people that can call in, and I didn't know who was going to agree or disagree, could have called in and disagreed. And they don't get that. They say, oh, you just preach to the choir, and they don't address the fact that we do take calls and we do have other points of view. Nonetheless, somebody who just ripped talk radio, this is going to surprise you, Joe Scarborough ripped talk radio, and he went to, in his new book, he goes after the profit motive in talk radio. We have that clip for you on the flip side. We'll take more of your calls a little later on next hour. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, probably on AFR Talk. Hey, check out AFR News next.